Hey
Heyo.
everyone. It is another Monday. Happy Monday, motivational Monday, mindful Monday,
Motivational
meaningful
Monday. Why
Monday.
have we never thought about that? My goodness. Motivational Monday, folks. Here on the Monday
Or
Rundown.
Monday rundown. That's right. Time
We're
for
gonna
a
have to
Monday
start this
rundown.
with Janelle. Janelle's gonna give like a talk or something before we get into it. Get us going.
And a quick
Get
Monday
the
motivation
motivations
piece.
going. No,
Well,
seriously.
so if this is your
Those shorts have been
first
hitting, guys.
Uh, if this is the first time that you are with us, welcome. We welcome you to Say That channel. And Monday rundowns are a great day for us because this gives us the freedom to talk about all different topics, not just the topics immediately related to entrepreneurship and business. Talk about just things in life, things that are current events, things that are going on currently in the world, and we just kind of get to talk about it, mull it over. And what I really love is that we bring in other thought creators, other just creators in general. I don't know, thought creators. It's like
No,
a
no,
whole
no,
thing.
but no. Well, other CEOs, other people who are,
Mhm.
doctors, scientists. It's not just,
Yeah,
Janelle
other
and I
professionals.
just saying what we think. Exactly. Yeah, these are people who are studying the fields that we are discussing and are experts in most instances. And I know today the person we have that we're going to be giving our opinion on. This guy is a huge name in the industry, and that puppy
Huge,
is
huge.
Jello.
And sorry, can you hear? I can go close the door while
No,
we're
no,
playing
you're
the video.
fine. You're fine. You're fine. The
Oh,
audience
the thing,
should
not
get
only
care.
I love that, like, we're gonna talk. This is someone who we're gonna bring on for a Monday rundown, even though he's actually most known probably in the business circles for what he talks
Yeah,
about,
that's true.
right? Like the what
Yeah.
know your
What
why,
it means
right?
to
Like,
be a leader, how to, yeah, I mean, we've already
yeah,
given it away. If you don't know what Janelle just said, then you know who our virtual guest will be today.
hint,
But let's jump into
start
the
with
question
why.
and then we could dive
Start with
into
why.
it.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So today's topic, guys, is
What is the truth about quiet quitting? Quiet
now, can I be
quitting,
the first
talking
to
about
say,
current
hold
events,
on.
right?
Can I be the first to say that I actually had no idea what this was? I have a sense of what the word obviously means just from it says. But initially, Janelle was like, "You don't know quiet quitting?" I'm like, "I do not." So, can you give a definition, Jay,
Yes,
for the
let's put
other
it up on the
ignorant
screen
people
for
out there
everyone.
who may not know?
Quiet quitting is when employees continue to put in the minimum amount of effort to keep their jobs, but don't go the extra mile for their employer. This can include things like not speaking up in meetings, not volunteering for tasks, and refusing to work overtime. It might also result in greater absenteeism.
If you're a
So,
quiet quitter,
doing
put it
the
in the comments, please.
yeah, if you're a quiet quitter, please put it in the comments. We want to know how many quiet quitters are there. Um, it's interesting. I feel like I quiet quit in phases. like I'm in my
Hmm.
quiet quitting phase, and then there are other parts of my times in my job where I'm like doing the most, and I feel like I'm doing all the things. Um, for me, not only is the truth, what is the truth behind quiet quitting, and like, but for me, it's like, one, is it a thing? Are people really out there doing it? Two, is it a generational thing? Because the conversations I've had around quiet quitting involve millennials and Gen Zers.
Yeah,
They're
Gen
the ones
Z.
who do a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
do the quiet quitting, and I want to push that because I don't necessarily think it's just them. I think they're just making it cool. I think all the generations have probably done it. We've been all doing it for a really long time, is doing the
Janelle
least.
stole my answer.
Oh no, just to do
Yeah.
doing the least just enough so that way you get paid and don't get fired, right? I feel like that is since the dawn of time or since the dawn of
Exactly. Yeah.
the industrialized way of working. I think that's what we've all done. I think it's just kind of cool and popular. I'll also say that I do think it's really interesting that Gen Zers and millennials are kind of out there like, yeah, no, like my mental health is worth more. There's also this idea that like with the quiet quitting, there's this emphasis on my own health and also what I think is impactful. Like if this doesn't create fulfillment in my life, if this doesn't impact a lot of people, like if I don't feel like it is, then I'm going to quiet quit my way through all of this just so I can pay my bills. That's kind of like
Well,
the subtext behind I think the Gen Zers reasoning or rationale behind the quiet quitting.
Well, you know, it's funny. I actually took this, and I agree with you in what you're saying. And it made me think that if you're an entrepreneur, I think many entrepreneurs are AKA quiet quitters. Like you're sitting at this job and they're there going, yeah, we want you to come in, bust your butt, do all this extra stuff for us, volunteer for these projects. And you're like, yeah, but I got my side business that I'm building outside. And I know that if I'm building this, I can't do that. So I want to say quiet quitting is probably the mantra of entrepreneurism. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be lazy, but I do think where they're saying, hey, give more here and it'll benefit you in the long run. I think many of us, and you brought up a great point, Janelle, I think generationally now, we've seen behind the curtain and we know that our generation got an opportunity to learn that the generation before didn't quiet quit, or many of them didn't even know that that's what they wanted to do and weren't being empowered to do it. And now we're being given opportunities to, hey, someone's out there saying, hey, your mental health is important, where that probably wasn't in the 50s and 60s. I'm pretty sure that wasn't the stuff that was going on in many companies. There were no Googles where there were like therapists on staff to handle things like that. You know what I mean? So I think generationally, it's a part of it because now we have terminology even for a lot of this stuff. Think about what it means to even hear the term like toxic masculinity or any of these other terms. Those things were there before, but you didn't have a term for it. So these things now are being termed. So I definitely think that plays a role in just even this being given a name. So now we could point to something. But again, I know it's not just us. We gave it away. Simon is on the deck. So
yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, so if you didn't get the hints earlier about start with why, and just that he's really
eaters eat last. Yeah, he's definitely a beast out there.
Yeah. So Simon Sinek. If you have never heard of Simon Sinek, I would highly recommend you go into YouTube, put in the YouTube title, start with why, and you will start to want to engage with Simon Sinek's work.
Be pulled into the rabbit hole.
Yeah. So talk about.
So let's hear what he has to say today.
He's a thought leader. I will say that.
Facts.
For sure. He is being interviewed by the host of the podcast Diary of a CEO, Stephen Bartlett. Shout out to Stephen Bartlett and Diary of the CEO. If you're a fan of that, we love his podcast and the YouTube channel. Yep. And so we're going to hear from them.
All right, let's do it.
This concept of quiet quitting where people are coming to work and they're just doing the minimum, doing their hours, doing their job, not volunteering or raising their hands or going, and that's it. And it raises the question, is that bad? And I'm a great believer that it's all about expectation management, like I get asked about Amazon a lot. Like, do I disagree with how Amazon is run? And my answer is always the same, which is they never lied. They didn't tell you it's a magical place to work where it's all kumbaya and we all we all hang out with unicorns every day. It's really amazing. They're very open about it, that it's very, very aggressive and very rough and very competitive. Yeah, and even the people who love it only last 2 years because they burn out. And so because they don't lie, you know what you're going to get if you go work there. And if you like that kind of culture, then go work there. Mm-hmm. If you don't like that kind of culture, then don't work there. But don't take the job and then say, I didn't know, because you did. Like Apple, people say, well, Steve Jobs used to drive his people really hard. But you ask the people who loved working there, they will tell you, yes, it was hard and there was a lot of pressure, but I did the best work of my life. And I'm glad I worked there because I never would have been able to work to that standard if I didn't work at Apple back in the day, right? So the important thing is that companies are honest about the kinds of cultures that they have, right? It's the lying. It's the, look how everything's kumbaya. And look, no culture is perfect. Even good ones have problems and even bad ones have advantages, right? But I think it's about managing expectations. And I think it's okay for somebody to say of themselves, look, I'm not a careerist. I am okay with the fact that I will never be an owner or a senior manager. I want to be paid fairly. I want to do decent work, but I want work to fit neatly in my life and not overwhelm it. And I'm going to look for a job where that is possible. And I don't think we're at the point where we have total honesty on both sides yet. I hope we can get to the point, because there's still stigma, because the older generations like you and me are looking at, if somebody were to say to us, I only want to work 40 hours, I'm willing to push my boundaries occasionally, but really this is just we would be like, well, you're not working here. Yeah. So, So it hasn't normalized yet.
Yeah.
But I think it's just a question of being honest with oneself. And you're allowed to change your mind as well. Like, I've decided I do want to be a little harder driving, and I do have more ambition than I thought, you know, or less. But I think it's just about honesty. And this point of view is as true in personal relationships as it is in our professional relationships. So I had a conversation with somebody recently that I found absolutely fascinating. And she is polyamorous. She has 4 boyfriends, right? And she's very open about it. And one of the things that she explains is you have to be very honest with everybody so that everybody knows what the deal is. You know, I think what a lot of people do is they're dating somebody, it's new, it's casual, and they're dating somebody else that's new and casual, but they don't tell them about each other. So they both think that they're more special than they are, or they both are driving towards something that may or may not be true because, you know, you're dating 2 or 3 people and you're going to wait and see which one works out. This, in the poly world, what I'm learning is you tell everybody everything so everybody knows. And it's very open and honest. And everybody knows where they stand. You can say, I'm not into this. I want to be the sole, or I'm okay with this. And maybe something will develop, maybe it won't. But the point is it's on the table. And I admire the level of communication.
Maturity.
What I'm hoping is that we do the same thing in our professional lives. So you sort of have poly work, if you will. You know, I have 2 full-time jobs. You know, I have 3 things going, or I only want this kind of relationship. And it works if both parties are really open and honest, because it's all about managing expectations. Hold on, I thought that you were going to give me all of your attention and all of your effort and all of your ambition, and you're telling me you only want to treat my job as a casual job? Like, just replace relationship with job. All the same rules seem to apply. But if I knew that, I would be fine with that. I would have given you a different job and had different expectations and wouldn't have pushed you really hard. I would have given that work to someone else. Because I'm assuming you want to live your career like I live my career. Like, I assume that I'm getting into this relationship and you're getting into it for the same reasons as me, because we never had a conversation. We are nowhere near that in terms of social acceptance for that kind of conversation. But I aspire for that somebody sits down and says, a part of your CV and part of your interview says, you know, what kind of work-life balance do you aspire for, and how do you view work? Even if you change your mind.
Jay,
and then if expectations are managed, then...
Sorry, I know this one is long, guys, and I'm not trying, but can we please just take a moment to actually digest what he just put out there? Because how powerful would that be if you could be that honest? Many people get in trouble with their job because they're having to lie, because they're having to do extra things. Let's say not even out of desire, just out of necessity. You may have to work multiple jobs or have responsibilities. Even just the level of honesty to be able to say, look, this isn't something that I want to do long term. But you can't even say that without the person on the other side. Well, but we don't want you here. It's like, but if you know I only want to be here for 2 years, create a plan for somebody who wants to be in your company for 2 years, and not worry about your turnover rate would probably be even less, because you knew this person's expecting to leave in 2 years. This could have a huge ramifications in positive ways for companies, if they, because think about, again, the way jobs handle when someone quits now. They try and hold you there for weeks so that they can figure out a plan while you're leaving. And I know he mentioned relationships, but imagine if that's not a good example, but your significant, you're with somebody, they're like, all right, so this isn't working. I'm going to give it 2 weeks for you to find somebody else to kind of fill this spot. Again, I know that part of the reference probably is not going to translate, but I love what he's saying so far. Scratch the last part of what I just said. Everything else is what I would really want to say. Forget my last silly commentary. That's not helpful.
All right, here we go back into it.
And what's the problem?
You've answered one of the actual number one questions I wanted to ask you about today, because when I read your book, The Infinite Game, one of the big things that changed in my life was, I remember I was on a plane, I read the book, started writing some stuff, came back to our office in the UK, and I did a big presentation to all my teams about how we create a sustainable company. Because if what you're talking about in the book is true, then and we're not playing a finite game here, how do we redesign the business from the ground up so that it is fundamentally sustainable?
Yeah.
I came up with this thing called WWW, Work, Welfare, and World, which is the 3 reasons why we exist. We made 2020 goals. So this was in 2019, 20 goals before 2020 for each of these areas. And I'm thinking about it again a lot now, which is like, if I was to design my business in a way where my team members would stay working here forever, how would I go about that? You've just answered it by saying the point about honesty.
Yeah.
Expectations. So sitting them down and saying, what do you want from your life? Because I've never asked that.
Yeah.
As you quite rightly identified, I'm presuming they want what I want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So honest, I wrote it here as a question to ask you. How do I get my employees to stay forever?
Okay. So why
Not
should
like a dictator? That sounds awful.
But I understand that. But why should it's you want to create a place in which if people want to stay, it'll be an enjoyable place that they can make a career and grow within the organization. Right? Like, and for some people who don't have aspirations for leadership, that they can come and do good work every day and sort of get fair raises on a regular basis, so that they would, with cost of living adjustments, et cetera, that they want to stay there, even if it's a middle level. Like, not everybody aspires to like be a hard driving, owner, And I think it's about making it a conversation. We never treated work like a conversation, We treated it like a speech. This is how it's going to be. And I think so. One of the good things that's coming out of COVID and young people is they're asking questions about, why does work have to be that way? And employers are rebelling against it because it doesn't fit the way we grew up and doesn't fit our understanding of relationships, And it's just a conversation. That's all it is. And by being honest up front, then you can say, I don't think this is going to be a good fit for us. I don't think you'll enjoy working here. And so if I employ you, knowing what I know now, we will both get frustrated. And I will either ask you to leave, or you will just tell me you're going to leave. That's how this will end, because of misaligned expectations. And so I think being honest about what you want and who you are and what your ambitions are, even if they change in the middle, you can knock on the door and say, I've changed my mind. I think I want to stay here forever. I told you I didn't, but I really love it here. And I know this from the military. Some people join the military because it's a steady job in a bad economy, or because the military will pay for you to get a college education, and they didn't have the money to get it without it. So they join the military. And then when there, they fall in love with it. They never came in for service. They discovered the service and the brotherhood and the sisterhood and decided to stay, And some people might have come in for the service and realized, this isn't for me. So work should be the same. But
that's a good point.
I think there needs to be honest conversation about, and like I said, I've had debates even with my partners, my work partners, when they say, well, if we're paying them a full salary and giving them benefits, they shouldn't have another job. And my question is, why not? As long as our work product doesn't suffer as a result.
Right.
Like if they're phoning it in, missing all the meetings, then yes, absolutely. Right? Like we're paying for certain expectation of performance, but not necessarily of when they get it done.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
dictating their thing. Yeah.
Why shouldn't they have 2 jobs?
Or leave early if they finish their work.
But I think, again, there has to be honesty.
Yeah.
Which is, we have an expectation that of X, and if somebody says, I don't want to meet that expectation because I want to have 2 jobs, then you can adjust for salary that way. You can be like, all right, then how about we pay you less and you can have all the freedom you want? And again, it's a conversation. We don't make these things conversations. We make them one-way. And by the way, that's from the employee to the employer too. I demand X. Somebody asked me recently, how do I, I want to ask my boss for a raise. How do I do it? And I said, the problem, the way most people ask for a raise is like, I want a 20% raise. I did my research, and my job, the average salary on my job, is X.
My friend gets paid X.
My friend gets paid X. I know somebody who I work with.
Yeah.
I'm doing the same work as them, so I want to be compensated equally, and I want a 20% raise, right? And so they're positioning the question that leaves the employer no choice but to say yes or no, right? And even if it's, I can help you get that, but this is how it's going to be. Like, you're going to have certain targets. It still comes across as a no, right? Because the request was binary, right? And so the advice that I gave to this person was, stop thinking of your job as an event and think of your job as a career. Think of your job as a continuum, and go to your boss in the middle of this continuum. I've worked here for 2.5 years. I've been here through high times and low times. I'm loyal. And my aspiration is to stay here and grow with the organization. can you help me figure out a path that gets me to this salary? It's not a yes or no now. Now it's like, absolutely I can give it to you today.
Yeah.
No path necessary.
Nice.
Or absolutely I can. We're going to set some target goals that I want you to hit. And if you can hit them, then you'll absolutely work to that salary. But again, it's allowing for conversation, and it's allowing somebody to recognize that you view your own career with the organization as a continuum, that I've been here and I want to continue to be here. So can you invest in me? Can you take a bet on me rather than meet my demands? And so I think a lot of these things fail because they're poorly presented.
Amen.
And this goes once again to, this younger generation who seem to lack the skills for coping with stress, not very good at asking for help, very confrontation avoidant, like I said, so afraid sometimes to have the question, ask the boss, can I have a raise, that they would rather just quit. And it's often with an email that says, you don't appreciate me, you don't pay me enough. I was like, what? You just had to ask me, I would have given you a raise, And I think part of it is also that, when somebody is anxious about something, they do poorly present. They do make things binary because there's fear or anxiety or stress or fear of rejection. What if my boss says no? Right? Can I handle that? Like all of these things that come into these very sort of binary aggressive things. And I always equate all of these challenges at work to personal relationships. Like you can't go to the person you love in your relationship and say, I demand this. It's just not going to go well. Right? But you present a situation, you say, I want us to move through this, and how do we work through this together? And I think that's how these difficult work conversations need to happen. A work relationship is a relationship like any other relationship. There's trust, there's anger, there's care, there's good days and bad days, and all of the same nonsense, messiness in our personal relationships are at work as well. There's slightly different standards of professionalism and emotional professionalism and things like that. But in terms of, it's a relationship like any other relationship. So you have to treat it like a relationship.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part.
Man, another banger. What's your takeaway from this one?
Oh, man. I love the idea of the continuum, right? Like, I love that, saying like, because I recently just did this. I had to ask my job for a raise. And I definitely didn't, I went at it the first way that he mentioned, not the second way, not the like, is there a path to get me along here? For what it's worth, I got an equity adjustment or whatever. So I ended up getting what I was asking for. But well, a little bit less than what I was asking for. But the point is, there was movement, and I now wonder if the conversation would have been different if I would have led into it in the way that he said. The other thing is, if I'm honest, I don't plan to be there forever. I have been there for 6 years, going on 7, and so I'm kind of like, it wouldn't have been like, oh, I plan to be here for like, so how can you get me to here? That's not an honest conversation. It would have been a conversation. It would have been an exercise in me doing it, but I'm an entrepreneur. I am working on other things. So I don't know. Maybe an open conversation about being an entrepreneur while also doing this job. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to have a dialogue about that, and about I need to be equitably
compensated.
Paid, Yeah, compensated for the work that I am doing. Like I'm being underpaid for the work that I'm doing is the conversation that is in my head, to be honest. And so, yeah, I don't know. As an entrepreneur, it's that whole thing where it's like, I'm doing what I can so I can
quiet quitting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing it yourself. Well, no, I think it's interesting that you are honest about the fact that you don't see yourself there, with this long-term mindset of continuum, and the idea of a skill that clearly he's depicting that we don't have, or we weren't encouraged to have. Because he's right, the jobs aren't, you don't go into like even an interview and feel like it's like that. It's not like a date, but it kind of is. So tell me about yourself. You know what I mean? Like, Winston, tell me about yourself. Yeah. What are some of the things, why'd you leave your last employment? Yeah. Think about that. Somebody may ask you that in a relationship. Why are you in your, you know what I mean? So those aspects.
Yeah, and then you get back a remark like, it's too soon to ask that. I think that's ridiculous. I don't think it's too soon to ever ask about past relationships. I think I've always thought that was weird. Anyway, because you're right. Because here's the thing. I do a lot of interviewing. I do a ton of interviewing. And so I don't mind asking
I'm
about
saying some of those things come.
Yeah.
And that's where that skill. That's why I said I think it's more of a skill that he was expressing, and one that we aren't being taught. Similar to your point, in relationships, you aren't being encouraged that. But let's say you're going into it with the expectation of this person I'm sitting across of could be my husband. You're trying to get there for that long-term continuum, and this person sit there going, I'm just trying to get through dinner. So yes, that question may be a little bit much right now. Do you get what I'm saying? So no, but again, it's just from your level of expectation now dictates that.
Right.
I think if you were on a date with somebody who it was understood, hey, we're looking for that next step in our life, you would ask, and that person would probably be way more open to answering that, because it's like, oh yeah, she's right. I don't want to sit here and waste her time either. Here's where I find myself in life at this point, and let's play it out from here. But when we were in our 20s, it's probably cool to just be like, yeah, let's just kick it around a little bit and see what's up. But now you have your checklist out, right? You're like, so mother, you're like writing that down. Does anyone in your family have any type of history of heart disease? You're like asking all these really invasive questions. People are like, what?
I may ask some health questions. I can't help it.
I'm saying, here we go. That's my point. See, I'm telling you right there. You're like, let's get to the nitty gritty.
You mentioned your aunt died of cancer. Do you know what type of cancer?
Is that is that run in your family? Is that just a one-off? But no, this was Simon Sinek again, guys. Janelle and I are a huge fan of his books are amazing. And if you've ever, I actually had a chance. My friend Frankie actually bought me one of his books, and we went to go see him talk. The guy's amazing. The guy is absolutely amazing, and it's just the way he reshapes or reframes, and it is mostly business situations. It's just amazing to watch, because he really does look at something that you may think, oh, it will never change, and his mind reframes it in a way it's like, oh, but it's just because you're looking at it this way.
Yeah,
that's why you can't see that it's like this other thing. And if we look at it, the army reference that he used about again, people who get into the army and say, oh no, I'm just trying to get through this, and then you hear they come back and they're like, oh, I'm gonna re-enlist, and you're like, what? And his point, they fell in love with the community that's there. I've heard that story from many people. Oh, I just did this because I couldn't afford college, but man, when I got there, I finally found a family of people who were fighting for the same things I was. And therefore, think about it in terms of network marketing. When you find a company, or again, there's just so many other references or that I think like we could all probably think to that fit this analogy of how work could be. Because people quiet quit in relationships all the time. All the time. They've been checked out, but they still show up. You know what I mean? Until one day they're just done anymore. So this was definitely a really good one. Let us know, guys, what you guys think in the comments, or if there are any other Simon Sinek books or talks that you guys have heard that you got a lot of value from. Please let Janelle and I know in the comments below.
Put them in the comments. For sure. Put that link in the comment ASAP. But until next time, as always, remember, you deserve the good life. Say that.
We'll see you guys next week. Peace. And I wonder.